In the U.S. military, there's a running joke that single black men who were sent to Europe do not return single. This is thought to be even more extreme for men sent to Germany. The general idea is that German women have some kind of fascination with African American men. Well, Jet magazine wrote about this back in 1952, and they very well may have been documenting the beginning of this phenomenon that's now lasted 70 years. Stay tuned and I'll show you everything I found. So my grandfather was stationed in Germany right after World War II in the 1950s, shortly after my father was born, and he told me about just how crazy the situation with black men and German women was. He also told me that he was basically approached all the time by German women despite being married. And while I was stationed in Italy between 2015 and 2018, I would notice how much success the young black men would have with Italian, Romanian, German, Russian, Ukrainian women. It did seem like they were doing quite well, and perhaps this is just a phenomenon of black men in the international arena who have means and discipline and all these things. But as tempting as it is to simply accept that black guys must be great and the rumors are true and that ladies clearly love us because we're awesome, one must first discuss the phenomenon of war brides and the role that had in creating this dynamic. Now, a war bride is a woman who's brought back to the country that currently occupies a defeated or devastated nation. So think England, France, Japan, Germany after the war. These nations were absolutely wrecked, and tens of thousands of their own men were killed in action, leaving a void. So a woman who just spent the last 4 years of her life in a war zone is more than happy to marry a foreigner who promises to take her back to a prosperous nation that's basically untouched by the most devastating war in human history, i.e. the United States. So it's not as if all American men are amazing or even all black men are amazing. There's just an enormous incentive for women who are coming from a nation that just was engulfed in war to marry the only men available to them who will also take them to a country that didn't have a war. Plus, Hollywood movies and America's role as a superforce made America and men coming from America rather attractive to the average woman. So according to some statistics, immediately after World War II, more than 60,000 American servicemen married women overseas. The U.S. Army's Operation War Bride eventually transported an estimated 70,000 women and children and began in 1946. By country, it breaks down like this. The military estimates that 50,000 to 100,000 servicemen wed women from the countries of the Far East, so think Philippines and Japan. Immigration records show that by 1950, 14,175 German brides of American servicemen had entered the United States. So all of that to say, Americans are good at winning over women in war zones. But despite these statistics concerning all men and war brides, it seems like something a bit odd was going on when it came to German women specifically seeking out black men, who only comprise something like 10% of the U.S. military. After all, nobody says that Italian women just love black men because the U.S. military also occupied Italy right after the war, and you don't see the same enthusiasm necessarily in Italy. Now, I'm going to let my friend Adam read directly from the article in Jet magazine. When you hear Adam's voice, understand that this is directly from the text, and when you hear my voice, this is me.
Unmarried, mate-hungry German women are looking to U.S. Negro males to solve Germany's worst husband shortage. At no other time in world history have so many white women ever sought Negro husbands. For the most part, the German women who now seek Negro civilian husbands had wartime contacts with Negro GIs. But others have simply heard glowing stories about the desirability of a Negro husband. As one result, Negro civilian travelers in Germany are besieged by German girls. As another result, U.S. Negro publications are getting sackfuls of mail from Frauleins who beg the editors to find me a Negro husband. Typical of some of the German women who have written for Negro husbands are these pictured below.
So, now I'm going to show you a couple of the photos that were sent in. I'm just going to scroll through them. And, it could be a little bit harsh to judge these women by today's standards. Now I'm going to be generous here because these women literally just survived life as teenagers living in a country led by a psychopath, and they were drugged through a brutal war. But, today's standards, maybe it's not fair to judge them by today's standards. But in many cases, you would assume that the hottest ladies on the market probably don't need to write letters overseas asking for men from a foreign country to come and date and marry them. Super attractive women can just walk outside and start flirting. So halfway through the article, they get to the real issue at hand. 3.5 million German men were killed in the war. So there's no men around.
Paradoxically, the hunger for a Negro husband is a direct outgrowth of Hitler's racism. The Nazis managed to have 3.5 million German soldiers killed on battlefields from Norway to North Africa and directed the murder of untold millions of Jewish men and women and anti-Hitler youth. Many of these men would have been marrying age now. The result has been a man shortage that has completely changed Germany's morality and sense of fidelity. Man sharing and husband sharing are common, and competition for husbands is intense. Every U.S. editor of major Negro publications has received many letters from German girls who want Negro husbands. Some, perhaps the majority, want husbands to care for the half-Negro, half-German babies left by departing GIs. Many others are just single girls who want to sport wedding rings. But many are purely mercenary or else are looking for a way to come to the U.S.
They mentioned that the women want husbands to take care of their half-German black babies. So it's like they're looking for a Captain Saver, Fraulein. But not all. Now, if you're familiar with the modern male, you know that young men with options and a future in no way desire a woman who already has children. So these ladies were already at a huge disadvantage with regard to mate selection. Or take a woman who has a child of a different race. These women were basically unwanted by German men after they gave birth to half-black babies. So you could understand why they might be reaching out to see if they could find a black husband, because they probably realized at that point that was their only chance to get married. But in many ways, it may not have been completely the fault of these women or these men that their relationship didn't work out, and that these men apparently abandoned their children. See, historical records have shown that many of the white officers and non-commissioned officers would get black men who were in a relationship with a German woman reassigned somewhere else, back in the United States or another country. As you all know, interracial relationships were beyond taboo in America in the 1950s. And the white men considered white women to be off limits to black men, even if they were white women from a different country who spoke a different language. So many families were actually fractured before they could even get started due to this behavior by U.S. Army personnel. Now, thousands of black men would end up leaving half-black babies behind in the decade following World War II. This contingent of children became known as the brown babies. They presented a unique issue for Germany, as they were treated as outsiders and were left to be raised by single mothers. Many of them were put up for adoption and sent to the United States, where they were adopted by white and black parents. Now, again, I told you that, a lot of these ladies, they weren't really what I would consider the best looking. However, Pauline Christian was considered by both Jet Magazine and myself to be the most attractive of the women who sent their photo along with the letter. And she had no children. She seemed to be genuinely interested in finding a black man for other reasons. The article went on to say the following about her correspondence.
One of the best-looking girls, according to her picture, is blonde Pauline Christian, who gives some of the fundamental reasons why German girls so avidly seek Negro husbands. "I have met a few colored men," Pauline wrote, "and would like a Negro husband. I like them because they are kind and generous, and their character is outstanding." Pauline is 24, childless, and works as a typist. Although blanket generalizations are hard to support with facts, German women have made one big generalization about U.S. Negro males. They are kind husbands and desirable lovers. Nearly all the letters contain praise of one Negro they are seeking, or Negro men in general.
So, as I said, this tendency to think positively of African American men has persisted in Germany for the 7 decades since this was written. I went to Germany myself several times, and I did notice that there was a tendency for German women to gravitate towards you. I even visited a friend back in 2000, 23 years ago, and he had a roommate. I'd gone to high school with him. He was a German exchange student, and at the time he had a female roommate who he wasn't romantically involved with. And when I went to her room, her wall was covered with posters of African American movie stars, and I thought, that's odd. Why? So I still find it amusing and peculiar, since there are several other countries that African Americans saw increased presence, like France, England, Italy, Japan. But for whatever reason, Germany is the only country where black men are consistently considered popular options for the women. Some people may wonder, well, whatever happened to these relationships? Did this work out? I mean, all these black men marrying German women, they can hardly speak the same language. Whatever happened to it? Well, it turns out they looked into this a couple months later, and for the most part, it's been said, or the statistics at the time reported, that these marriages between GIs and war brides tended to have a slightly better than average divorce rate. So their marriages lasted a little longer and a little better than marriages that were between two Americans or two African Americans. Some people would say that the marriages hadn't lasted long enough. The war ended in 1944. A lot of the marriages happened around 1946, 47, and then this article was written in 1952. So the average divorce takes place after 10 years, and it's only been about 7. So if you're a pessimist, you'd say, well, they may look better now, but in due time, they were probably going to deteriorate. Either way around, this is a major part of American history and a major part of sort of the black man's first move out of America. This is the first time in history that large numbers of African Americans entered an international dating pool and had a positive response. So I think it's worth noting. It's interesting. It's, you could consider it. I still find it unusual that one group of women would find black men attractive while the others, it's hit or miss. This is very unusual. But okay. So if there's any black men out there who are actually searching for international women, probably start in Germany. That's probably your best shot. So I'll close it out at that, and I will see you next time.